Father, we just thank you. Father, we come before you, we sit at your feet on your day. Father, we're listening to your word. So Father, we know that by all these things that is by your grace, Lord Father, we just pray by your wrath that you would just continue to flow through us and lead us. Open up our eyes and our hearts, Lord Father, and our ears, that we may receive what you want us to receive. Father, we just give you glory, Lord Father. I lift up this family before you, and we just thank you for this privilege of being called yours. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. Amen.
We are already live.
We're live, man.
We're live for the day. What you want? We're all live.
Yeah? Can everybody hear?
Yeah.
There we go. Can we have live? Okay. If you're looking for your iPad's downstairs.
Yes, yes. Okay, thanks.
Alright. Before we start with the bracha, we've been playing with the idea a little bit, but because of the feast, we kind of got sidetracked to put together a group for the people who want to do prayer during the week. I've asked Uncle Tony and Auntie Elsie if they would be willing to help us out there because so they have graciously opened up their home. So for those of you who want to do corporate prayer, get-togethers, would you guys okay to stand back a little bit often? Just come and sit, and then you guys can decide on a time when would suit Uncle Tony and Auntie Elsie and you guys together, and we can get together during the week and we can do that prayer warrior thing. All right. Yeah. That's it. Okay. All right, let's say that bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who gives the Torah, truth, and the good news of salvation to his people Israel, and to all the people through his Son Yeshua the Messiah, Lord. Amen. All right. Last week you didn't have to go through, well, this week you didn't have to go through bajillion, million names to get some sort of idea of what's going on. But obviously, finishing off where we left off, we're in Joshua chapter 22. And it kicks over back, as you guys have seen, to the narrative of what's going on. And we are going to attempt, God willing, to finish off 3 chapters in one lesson. Yeah, smell, but that's my intention. What is other ideas? That's we could use it. Alright, but because this is part of the narrative and because this is already mentioned in Torah before, in many places, we've discussed it as we've been going through, so I'm going to mention them and we can touch base, but I really want to get to chapter 23 and 24, where we talk about basically summarizes Joshua's life, and there's a little note at the end of Joshua which is just kind of like, seems to be shoved in there, which is also quite important. Alright, so 22 verse 1. Then Yehoshua called the Revoni and the Gadi and the half tribe of Manasseh and said to them, you have done everything Moshe the servant of Adonai ordered you to do, and heed what I said in all the orders I gave you. Okay, what do you think he's setting up? what is it about those 3 or 2.5 tribes here that he's addressing them?
They were the ones on the other side of the Jordan.
Right, so those are the ones that wanted to set up their families' homes and that on the other side. What was their reasoning? Right, we're cattle people, and this is cattle land, and this is where we're going to stay. I only mention this because if you go to Israel, there's plenty of places for grazing and things like that, obviously, for their flocks and their herds, and there were places for them. But I wonder if they, after going over all these years, have not maybe stopped and thought, hang on a second, maybe we should have crossed the river. Like I said to you before, it's a very odd thing for me. Abba in His graciousness allowed them to have that land as well, but ultimately they should have been in the promised land. They stopped just short of their promise, but God included them. So these guys are going to go out, and they're going to go back to their land, and they were supposed to set up. Remember, their reasoning was, I'm going to set up places for what, and what. 3 specific categories. The cattle. Yeah, it was the cattle's the animal thingies, and then, oh yeah, but my sons and my daughters will come last. And then Moses, after consulting God, said, no, it's the other way around. You sort out your family, then you sort out your animals and your crops in those areas afterwards. But you will have to go to battle. So this is the end of the conquest. Is the conquest completely finished though? No. But they have done enough for Joshua to warrant the fact that we can take the rest from here. There's a few little niggles, there's a few little places, but with us at the helm here, it should be fine. Go and set up your side. And remember the trust that these guys must have had. Probably we're thinking this probably lasted around 7 years. To get them across, to leave their families and leave all of them unattended without the men of war. And I was taking care of that, so they're going to go home. All this time you have not abandoned your kinsmen, but have obeyed your commission. As Adonai your God ordered. Yeah, here we go. Okay, commission.
It was said they could stay in that land, but they first had to go across and fight.
This is the word, right? What was the Great Commission?
Go forth and in your going, make disciples.
In your going, make Talmudim. Teach them to obey all that I have taught you. Right? I raise this up because here we see the guys, after a period of time, they had obeyed everything that they had promised that they would do. I bring this up because there's a point where you guys will have to look Allah in the face and you're going to go, what did you do with the commission I gave? Now again, we've got that process, right? To become someone who trains up disciples, you first have to become a disciple. To become a disciple, I have to let go of everything else so that I can be like my rabbi. And once I've trained for 7 years, and I've become like him, understood him, walked with him, did everything that I would get to the place then when I could go and influence other people's lives as this man has influenced mine. I think sometimes, and a lot of times in this day and age, we get caught up in a whole bunch of things he never told us to do. Ministries get sorted, we see one verse and we develop a theology, and that's what we do. We run around chasing our tails, and then when we look again, we've been so distracted we can't turn around and say, I've made one Talmud. Not one student. I don't turn around once, I can't say that I've sat down and fulfilled any sort of commission. A lot of us don't even get to the choice of becoming a disciple, even though He's called you. He's called you time and time again, and He's saying, listen, are you going to follow me or not? Now, it's always been a conundrum to me, is that when you go into the Gospels and you see how many people heard the call and obeyed and how many people ignored the call. No, not right now. No, let me bury my father. Remember I spoke about that. That wasn't just because his father had recently passed and now he's got to bury him, said Sheva. It was because he was saying was, when my father dies, I'm free, and then I will be able to follow you. You know what? If it takes 5 years, it takes 5 years. If it takes 10, it takes 10. Living in a day and age when to be discipled by a rabbi was considered a great honor. And you use someone else as an excuse. No, not at this time. No, I'm not quite ready. No, my hair's not exactly combed in the right direction for me to become a disciple this morning. Ultimately, there's going to become a point when you're going to sit down and you're going to look at it and you're just going to go. And that part of becoming a disciple, right? It says, teach them to obey everything that I taught. What did he teach? Torah. He expounded on it, he taught it, he lived it, so that he would. He would be the example that we would be able to follow. You know, there's an interesting thing about what they say about rabbis is that their biggest desire, and I'm paraphrasing here from different sources, is that they want to not only know Torah, but they want to live Torah. They not only want to live Torah, they want to breathe Torah. They not only want to breathe Torah, they want to walk Torah. They want to die Torah. That is the essence of everything they do, and it is the essence of every decision they make. These last couple of weeks we've been dealing with as leadership a few issues. And it's been having most of us run around quite a bit. And a lot of that has to come down to the fact that people have forgotten this commission. Their very essence, or their very desires, or the very part of it, the very point of this week, of this choice, is because we forgot that we need, with our every decision, our every choice, decide what Torah says, and that's what I'm going to apply to my life. How many times do we sit and we ask the question, you have a decision to make. Do I stop and I ask, what did Yeshua say? What does Torah say? And base that above my feeling, above my understanding, above my perception. And say, this is the action I'm going to follow because this is what God said is right. And as many of you have well known, it is uncomfortable at many times to be obedient. But as many of you well know, the blessing you receive far outweighs the discomfort. These guys fulfilled a promise they made Moshe. I'm asking you to examine your hearts and ask yourself the question, are you going to fulfill a promise you made to Yeshua? You gave him your life. You were baptized as he was baptized. You are being taught Torah and you're celebrating the feast as he did. You're sitting in a community hall. This is a synagogue in ancient times. The only house big enough where we can all sit together. On Shabbat because he did. Where does your halakha get to the point where you understand? It's not about all the things I never told you to do. Why didn't you do the thing that I told you to do? They fulfilled their commission. As Adonai your God had ordered. Now Adonai your God has given rest to your kinsmen and have told them, as he told them you would. So you to return to your tents in the land which is in your possession, which Moshe the servant of Adonai gave you beyond the Yarden. Only take great care to obey the mitzvah and the Torah which Moshe the servant of Adonai gave you, to love Adonai your God. What is he quoting? Shema Israel. to love him, follow all his ways, observe his mitzvot, and here's a nice little piece, cling to him. How many of us get to the point where we want to cling to people, cling to jobs, cling to unforgiveness, cling to hope that has got nothing to do with God's promise for you? And we hold on to that and we fight for it. And if anybody comes in our way, oh, you better move. Doesn't matter whether they're leadership or whether they're the president or whether they're whatever, you're getting in the way of what I want. It says, cling to him. Now, what's the image you get in your mind when you cling to something? Right,
Crossing the street.
Right? What about if you're sitting there and you're walking a tightrope and the only person that's going to get you across is the one that's carrying you and he says, hold on. Are you going to be very casual and just hanging over there with one arm dangling your feet off and seeing how long you can hold yourself up? Because you can actually see the drop underneath you. You can actually see the destruction. You can actually see what's happening, what will happen to you if you let go. Like something unsafe is sitting around us, and I have to now hold on or cling to my child to make sure I don't lose them. And if you ever had it, when you had your arms, your little kiddie's arms, or if you remember doing this to your dad or your mom, when you held on for dear life, at the thought that they might drop you, at the thought that you might get pulled away from them. You didn't just hold on little bits. You clung to everything. And how do I do that? Reverse a little bit. Love him, follow him, observe his mitzvahs. Cling to him and serve him with all your heart and all your being. Are you serving self or are you serving God? Which one are you glorifying? Is it about you or is it about him? Which part of this don't you understand? Hey, back row, I'm talking to you, man. Hello. I'm going and I'm sleeping. Every decision you make defines the person you're going to become. Every decision. And if I put before you a path and I say, okay, listen guys, this is it. You're either going to have life or you're going to have death. One of them has God and one of them doesn't. That's ultimately the bottom line. Everything else is distraction, everything else is in between. You either choose to live or you choose to die. And if you fail to choose God, you choose to die. That is the only option. That is the only choice. You're either going to obey. If you don't obey, you automatically disobey. You're not clinging to him, you're clinging to yourself. You're not loving him, you're loving you. But you're loving you to the point of death. You know, there's a funny thing when you counsel people and you get to the point where you sit there and you go, how long are you going to beat yourself up? How long are you literally going to put yourself in situation after situation after situation, testing how many times you should be dead until you actually get it right? How many times do you want to choose death over life? And think, this is the crazy part. We did this a lot. Think for a second that the outcome is going to be any different. You're playing with your eternity and you're doing a decision after decision after decision because you don't have God in any of your decisions. Remember what Torah means? What does Torah mean? What is the root word? Not just instruction.
Aim forward, aim straight.
To aim straight and hit the mark. What am I aiming for? Truth. Him. Perfection. Some of you guys are closing your eyes, hoping you're going to hit the mark, and you're not even looking at the board. You're not even asking him what he thinks. You're doing what you want, and you're hoping it's going to turn out right. Now there's a point where Dave's going to have to let go of the bicycle seat, or he's going to tell you, please don't try to ride into that wall, it's probably going to hurt. But you continually to choose it. Continually choose it. And he sends people of the person to try and stop you from pedaling. They're like, why are you stopping me from pedaling? Because there's a wall in front of me. I'll do whatever I want. I'm going to go fast as I can, but there's a wall in front of me. You always want to take away my fun. Now you get to visit the dentist, the doctor, and the people who have to fix your bike. That's if you don't have to sit in hospital for a little bit because they're going to put you back together. And you cry because your arm's broken and it hurts and my face is sore. But you ignored the people that were putting your way to check your walk because you forgot you were aiming at the wrong thing. Then Joshua blessed them and he sent them away and they went to their tents. To 1/2 tribe of Manasseh and Moshe, it was given the inheritance in Bashan, but to the other Joshua gave among the kingsmen on the west side of Jordan. When Joshua sent them away to their tents, he blessed them, saying, return with great riches to your tents, with very much livestock, with silver, gold, and bronze, iron, and great quantities of clothing. Share the spoil of your enemies with your kinsmen. That's an interesting thing. That should take you back to the beginning of Joshua. If Achan had just waited and he didn't take spoil from Jericho and he trusted that God would provide for them, he would have had so much more than the little bit that he took and that he could hide in his little tent. If you just wait for what God has in store for you instead of doing it yourself and trying to sort it out yourself, you don't have any idea of what's in store. That's something like just stretching. You get to the place where we don't see and you're like, I better take it now, I don't know what's around the corner. What you're really saying is, I don't think God has got my back and I don't think He'll give me more than what I understand. What you're really saying is, I don't trust Him to give me what I want. Well, some of the worst things you could ever have is giving you what you want. Some of the best things you have are the things you didn't even ask for. You know, it's this passion. I was reminded about, Yeshua, and we're getting to the stage, right? And we're like, God wants you to ask. He wants you to cry. He wants you to intercede. He's like, Abba, I'm here. I want to give you everything that I need. Please, I'm talking to you, and I know you are alone my provider. But remember the pattern in the Garden of Gethsemane. Remember the disciples' prayer. He said, Abba, if there's any other way, let's do that. Something about dying that I'm not all that excited about right now. But he stops himself and he says, may your will be done. Our Father who art in heaven, may your name be sanctified. Hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done. If I pray it, why don't I let him have it? If you're looking for a husband, pray for the one he sends. If you're looking for a wife, pray for the one he sends. If you're looking for stability, pray for his stability. If you're looking for peace, pray for his peace. And let him give you what he's prepared for you, because he knows there's plans and there's purposes and there's things he's going to use. And he might use that very gift that he's given you. We have to let go. So the descendants of Reuben and the descendants of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh returned. They left the people of Israel in Shiloh, in the land of Canaan, to go to the land of Gilead, to the land they were to possess, which they already did. They already did possess according to the order of Adonai through Moshe. When the descendants of Reuben and the descendants of Gad and the half tribe arrived to the area of the land of the Canaanite near the Yarden, the Jordan, they built an altar there by the Yarden, a large, impressive altar. The people of Israel heard of it, and they said, look, the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh have built an altar by the frontier of the land of Canaan, in the area of the Yarden, on the side that belongs to the people of Israel. Now, let's see what happens. We obviously know that guilt is not that. When the people of Israel heard it, the entire community, Israel gathered together in Shiloh to wage war against them. The people of Israel sent Pinchas. Now that should send a shudder down your spine. The last time we heard about Pinchas becoming zealous about God, people got speared. They didn't send Eliezer, they sent Pinchas. He's the one guy you don't want to see in front of a fight when he's like David with Goliath's sword and he's going, do you have a problem? And the giants are looking at David going, Last time any giant had a problem with David, he didn't live very long, much long after. The last time Pinchas got zealous for God, so you want to build an altar, did you say? Pinchas, put down the spear, let's talk about it like logical now. Just hold on, let's have a conversation. They sent Pinchas, the son of Eliezer, the Kohen, to the land of Gilead, the descendants of Reuben, and the descendants of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. With them were 10 leaders, one leader of an ancestral clan for each of the tribes of Israel. Each one was the head of his ancestral clan among the thousands of Israel. They came to the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, and they spoke to them, saying, here is what the whole community of Adonai is saying. What is this treachery that you have committed against the God of Israel, turning away today from following Adonai? In that you have built yourselves an altar, thus rebelling today against Adonai? Is the guilt we incurred at Peor not enough for us? We haven't cleansed ourselves from it to this day, and even though a plague came upon the community of Adonai, what happened at Peor?
Moabite women. What's the Moabite women?
Right, Baal Peor. Go back to the thing of Balaam. Right. Send the lady. The last time Pinchas was in action. He's already set it up here. Is this why you have turned away from, have you turned away today from following Adonai? If you rebel against Adonai today, he will be angry tomorrow with the whole community of Israel. Let's stop here. Your sin is going to affect everyone in this community. But don't worry, it's just you. No. They look at these people on the other side of the Jordan and they say, if you do this, God is going to be mad with us. You are part of this community. You stand with us. Your sin affects me. I can do everything right, and one of you can do one thing wrong, and God will withhold what He's got in store for this entire fellowship because you refuse to move. But don't worry, it's only other people's salvation we're talking about. Get done what you need to get done so that you can be happy. Your sin affects the family. People that have families understand this. One person's unhappy, the entire family is unhappy. If the land you have taken possession of is unclean, then cross back over to the land which belongs to Adonai, where the tabernacle of Adonai is located, and take possession among us. But don't rebel against Adonai. So they are willing to give up tracts of land. If they've got a problem, come and stay here. We'll make our inheritance smaller, it'll be fine. But don't rebel against them. By building yourselves an altar on other than the altar of Adonai our God. Didn't Achan, the son of Zerah, commit such sin regarding to this set aside for destruction, and God's anger fell on the whole community of Israel? He was not the only one who died for his crime. Remember what I said to you? People buried fathers that night and they followed God wholeheartedly because of one man's sake. Dr. Ramsey, talk about happiness. Compare this to the community sitting in the wilderness. These guys are taking a stand and they're taking a firm stand and they're not saying, we are not going to be cheated out of God's inheritance and our job here because you got confused. Brother, what are you doing? You know what I find fascinating about this story? Is they got it completely wrong. Listen to what happens. Then the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh answered the leaders of the thousands of Israel. The mighty one, God is Adonai. Different translation, please. Those of you with some of the original Hebrew one. The mighty one, Elohim, yes? Elohim, El, and Hashem, the Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, right? Okay? He uses 3 titles to address one God. Interesting. Possible triune reflection? Okay? He doesn't just do it for emphasis. He's telling them again, serving. He knows, and Israel will know, if we acted in rebellion or treachery against Adonai. Don't vindicate us today. We have built an altar in order to turn away from following Adonai or to offer it on burnt offerings, grain offerings, or sacrifices as peace offerings. If we have let Adonai himself require us to atone for it. So if we've done wrong, let Abba talk to us. Rather, we did this out of anxiety, not a good place to make a decision, but anyway, because we thought sometime in the future your descendants might say to our descendants, you don't have anything to do with Adonai, the God of Israel. We saw how you were on that side and we were worried that you would let us go up and worship our God. So we built an altar. Why did we build an altar? Because Adonai made the Yarden, the border between us and you, so the descendants of Reuben Gad have no share in it, or share in Adonai. In this way, your descendants could make our descendants stop fearing Adonai. So we did. So we said, let us now make preparation and build ourselves an altar, not for burnt offerings or sacrifices, but as a witness between us and you, and between our generations who will come after us, so that we may perform the service of Adonai in His presence, with our burnt offerings, sacrifices, and peace offerings, so that your descendants will not say to our descendants at some future time, we have no share in Adonai. For this reason we said, when they accuse us for future generations in this way, we will say, look, here is a replica of the altar of Adonai, which our ancestors made, not for burnt offerings or sacrifice, but as witness between us and you. Far be it from us that we should rebel against Adonai and turn away today from following Adonai by building an altar for burnt offerings, grain offerings, and sacrifices, other than the altar of Adonai which stands in front of his tabernacle. So this is an exact replica, a bigger one, to show you that we've seen it. We were there. We know what it looks like. Don't tell us we were never there. Principle. One side of the argument, no matter how many you are, develop a perception about a thing, does not make it right. What does a wise man do when he hears about a thing?
Get 2 or 3 witnesses.
He investigates and he gets witnesses. Some of you need to learn this. One person's opinion about what happened or what was said or who that person is or who that person's not is not truth all the time. Rather get 2 or 3 so that you can confirm a matter, so that you can understand it and you can get to the bottom of it, and then talk to the people that are busy in that place. They could have got up, they could have gone to war, they could have crossed the Jordan, they could have wiped out their brothers and sisters and never asked the question, what are you doing? Never asked the question, help us understand what this thing is about. Tell me where you're coming from so I can address it, or what we're ready to do. But understand this is quite serious to us and we're taking a stand. If you don't investigate something and you jump to conclusion, people get burnt. And let me tell you, new tech generation, WhatsApp is not really a great thing when you try to put emotions and feelings by, because you narrate for the other person. Social media sucks when it comes to this. I love you could mean, oh, or you can detect a hint of sarcasm with that. Oh, I love you. And that just depends on how I'm feeling, not necessarily how the person who sent it. But because I want to make my case on how I'm feeling, I will interpret what is there. You could just be in a bad space that day when someone said something and you don't recognize that that person is venting about something, or is hurting about something, or is overreacting about something. You should maybe stop and consider, why are you acting this way? What is it that's going on about? And if it involves 2 or 3 people, get them together and have a discussion. Before you make plans to change the world via one person's testimony. They would have killed their brothers just at looking what they did and not asking them what their intentions were. 2.5 tribes would have disappeared this day. So, we learn from Torah again. Discuss, meditate, investigate. When Pinchas the Kohen and the leaders of the community, the heads of the thousands of Israel who were there with him, heard what the descendants of Reuben and the descendants of Gad and the descendants of Manasseh said, it satisfied them. Pinchas, the son of Eleazar the Kohen, said to the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the descendants of Manasseh, today we know that Adonai is here with us, because you have not committed this treasonous act against Adonai. Now you have saved the people of Israel from the anger of Adonai. So Pinchas, the son of Eleazar the Kohen, and the leaders returned from their descendants of Reuben and Gad, and from the land of Gilead to the land of Canaan, and to the people of Israel, bringing word back to them. What they said satisfied the people of Israel. The people of Israel blessed God and said, no more am I going to wage war against the descendants of Reuben and Gad and destroying the land they lived, where they lived. The descendants of Reuben and Gad called the altar Ed, a witness between us that Adonai is God. So again, you can imagine, the men go out to war, Pinchas at their head, they know what these guys have done, it's going down. Oh, no, it's okay now, we understand, no, it's okay. So the people in Israel are freaking out because maybe some tribes have some family members over there. My daughter married one of those guys. I think for a second there wasn't a split heart right there. But, oh, Hashem, they understood where they were coming from and everybody was happy. They saw what was going on, they investigated, they got their full perspective, and then they were satisfied and they were able to give an actual good report of what was going on. All right.
Do you think that they also used the 3 different names of God communions or with ones?
Well, they already did. They said, why have you done this against God? So they said, if we have done this, let God talk to us. And let the plague be upon us. They were so adamant they were right. They were saying, it won't affect you, it'll affect us. And again, Abba is there. He understands. He knows what's going on. But what people don't understand is we get caught up in the moment. And sometimes when we get caught up in the moment, we don't think clearly. And then when we don't think clearly, everybody dies. Yes. And then we realize, oh, hang on a second, they didn't actually say that. And just what I thought I heard, and it seemed very much like that, and therefore I should have taken it back at least 3 groundings and 14 slaps and no breakfast for 4 days. But that only took 7 days of disgruntledness and brokenness in your house for you to figure out. Guys, it happens all the time. I perceive you doing this. Are you ready? Talk to me plainly. Are you talking to brethren? These guys are guys that are being led by God. They've just come in, they're settling down, everything's done, but they are still ready to go to war at a moment's notice. Wouldn't you be sick of it? Even like all this fighting and fighting. 7 years, all we've been doing is fighting, 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 and now I have to go fight over there and I have to fight over. But they were willing to stand up for what God said. And when you realize your brother's on the right page, if he's not correcting in love, if he is, well, keep that witness there. We will mark it down on our side as well, and then we will know that you will never be. It is a witness for us. That was the heart. May they never be cut off from serving God. Funny enough, we see that sort of fear coming again with Jeroboam, right? He doesn't want them to go down to Israel to worship the way it was supposed to, but God gave him the kingdom, the 10 tribes to go up. So he built his own little altars, but he said, he didn't say, let us be witnesses. He said, no. Anybody can be a Levite for a certain price. No. You don't need to worship there, you can worship here. Yeah, if Pinchas was there, Jeroboam would have had a problem. But Abba knew what was going on, and he saw these people split long before. Remember, there was a split with King David and Saul. 10 tribes versus 2. And so we go. Okay, chapter 23. A long time afterwards, when Adonai had given Israel rest from their surrounding enemies, and Yehoshua was old, with age taking its toll. It's quite interesting. He's setting up for something. When you look at chapter 23 and 24, I want you to parallel Deuteronomy in your mind. Right? Except when Moses gives a little, you better not muck up. Remember when we're coming from and took, how many chapters? 33, 34, something like that, chapters in Deuteronomy. But when Joshua does it, it's 2 chapters, straight to the point. Okay? So he's now settling down and he's starting to give this sort of commission. Alright? He was old. Joshua summoned all Israel, their leaders, heads, judges, and officials, and said to them, I am old. Age is taking its toll. Thank you very much, Joshua. Don't stand up. You have seen everything that Adonai your God you have seen everything that Adonai your God has done to all these nations because of you. For it is Adonai your God who has fought on your behalf. There's such humility in that statement. You have seen what God has done. God told him, you will cause them to inherit. This is on you, Boyki. You go out and lead them, and I will be with you, and we will take the land. I will fight more than what you were, but you've got to pitch up. And he goes, you saw what God did. Can any of you deny? Here I have allotted to you land for inheritance according to your tribes between the Yarden and the Great Sea to the west. It includes the land of the nations. I have destroyed them, the nations which remain. So we still got problems. Adonai your God will thrust them out ahead of you and drive them out of your sight, so that you will possess their land as Adonai your God has told you. Sadly, they did not believe this. People left. They left their inheritance. They left people in the land. And we have people in the New Testament that are serving pagan gods in Israel, in the Galilee. Problems. Therefore, be very firm about keeping and doing everything you feel. No? Different translation? Everything you dream about.
No.
Everything you want a perception of something to be. Everything written in the book of the Torah of Moshe. Do it. Don't talk about it. Don't intellectualize it. Don't sit there talking about the 17 different links between Pesach, Shavuot, and Yom Kippur. If you don't practice it, that means nothing to you. It's head knowledge. You have just become a big Greek person who wants to understand the fullness of philosophy. If you understand that God is God and He's going to ask you to do it, and He tells you to obey everything that I'm doing, that I've told you to do, if you belong to Him, walk it, live it. It is written. It is a witness for you. My mind gets boggled a little bit, and it took me a time to get there, because I would have discussions with people and they would say, well, I've asked God to tell me if He wants me to do it, and He didn't. And I said, but it's written in the book. Do this. Who's talking there? God. Do this. I don't understand. He is telling you to do it. Seek a confirmation, but here, If God told you to do it, if Messiah tells you to do it, then why are you still asking for a third confirmation? Why are you falling short of this idea that if you belong to Him, you have to do these things? Okay? It took me a while to process that. I was quite taken back, and then it just came down to it, Billy did tell me. And not turning aside from it either to the right or to the left. Sound familiar?
Beginning of Joshua.
No, not just that. Where did he get that phrase from? Blessing of life. He listened to his rabbi. He's quoting Moses, who's quoting God. So he says, look guys, it was said before, I'm saying it again. It's a good disciple, this one. He's echoing what they're saying. Then you won't become like those nations remaining among you. Don't even mention the name of their gods. Don't even think about it, don't even talk about it. Let alone have people swear by them, serve them, or worship them. But cling to Adonai your God as you have done to this day. This is why Adonai has driven out great strong nations ahead of you. And it explains why no one has prevailed against you to this day. It's funny that the only defeat they had was what? What was it? I. What does I mean? That was what number? Ruin. Ruin. It's funny that I was actually built on top of a ruin before Joshua got there and made it another ruin. And yet it was one of the things that turned Israel back and made it run, a little city that caused them ruin. But Baruch Hashem, God is forgiven, right? Why one man of you has chased 1,000, it is because Adonai your God has fought on your behalf, and He said to you, therefore take great care to love Adonai your God. Otherwise, if you retreat and cling to the remnant of these other nations remaining among you, if you make marriages with them and have children with them, and they with you, know for certain that Adonai your God will stop driving out these nations from your sight. Instead, they will become a snare and a trap for you, whipping your sides and pricking your eyes until you perish from the good land which Adonai your God has given you. Why is that a problem? Is He against saving the other nations? No. Said to you before, God doesn't want war. He gave them a chance to leave and to learn and to live, and they chose not to. They chose to fight Him. They chose to take their God into battle. They chose their own destruction. If you assimilate, let me put it this way. If you go into a church and you go into a clubhouse, should I see difference in action and character? I should. Do I always? If I went into a pub and I went into a church, depending on time, should I hear different conversation? I should. If I ask the church to give me a list of priorities, and I ask the pub to give me a list of priorities, should I see a difference? If you look like the world and you sound like the world and you smell like the world, but you tell me you're a believer, I don't believe. Be very careful. Satan has given us an easy scapegoat, and it's one of the things in our time. In many, many people's homes, you were always taught to be polite. You do not talk about religion or politics, and you'll get along just fine. It's a nice way to nullify any sort of God conversation, so therefore you don't have to worry about what they think. Closet Christianity, closet Judaism. Don't worry, you can pull out your kippah when you walk into synagogue. You go to the shops, you don't wear tzitzit, you don't wear kippah. But when the rabbi says you better put on your kippah. I don't know how many uncles and aunties that I've seen or walk around like that I know are Jewish that are pretending not to be. And how many Christians out there that I know are believers and they pretend not to be. If you don't act any different to the world, you're starting to assimilate to the world. That's a problem. Why? Because eventually you start thinking like the world. And then you start living like the world. And then you start to, why do I have to cling to this God thing? Oh no, only when I want something, only when I'm in trouble, only when I need it. Yeah, the problem is if you keep on running into that wall, you keep on knocking yourself unconscious, you become so numb to any sort of pain, you don't really need Him anymore. Assimilation is a problem. It's even a problem in our time. It's sad to think that people in churches and people in synagogues are getting divorced as much as the people of the world. They don't have a foundation on God anymore. Because it's completely acceptable in our time to live together, to sleep together, and do whatever because it's acceptable. 60 years ago, frowned upon. God has always frowned upon. He hasn't changed. Guys, you're going to have to take a stand for what you believe. You're going to have to hold on to God because He's the only one that's going to get you through this alive. And I'm not just talking about your little mortal life, I'm talking about eternal life. Today I'm going the way of all the earth. Therefore consider in all your heart and all your being that not one of all the good things Adonai your God said concerning you has failed to happen. It has all come to pass. Nothing of it has failed. Stop and take stock of where you've come from. He promised it. He brought it. Some of you have forgotten promises of old. Go back and remember what He's promised you, and if He was faithful then, He will be faithful now. Nevertheless, just as all the good things Adonai your God promised, you have come upon you, likewise Adonai will bring upon you all the bad things too, until He has destroyed you from this good land which Adonai your God has given you, when you violate the covenant. Not walk away from the covenant, not ignore the covenant. He says you violate it. Of Adonai your God, which He ordered you to obey, and go and serve other gods and worship them. Then the anger of Adonai will blaze up against you, and you will perish quickly from the good land which He has given you. I've given you a house, I've given you a job, I've given you a purpose, I've given you a function. If you walk away from me, I take that stuff away because I'm using that to give you life. I'm using that to bring light into dark places. I'm not just putting you there so you can act like them. I'm putting you there to show them who I am. Kingdom of priests reflects Him. They understand your God by your actions. If you don't take Him seriously, I'm not God. There was one good piece of advice, and the Lord gave me once. He said, he sat there and he was saying, He gave me a little booklet before we got married. The father, sort of like a father to son thing, He gave it to his two other sons, and He gave it to me, and He said, listen, there's some wisdom, read it before you get married. And one of the things I still took away with that book is this: never badmouth your spouse, especially out in other company. Because if you badmouth her, it gives them license to badmouth. So when you grumble against your God, it gives other people license to do the same. When you walk away from Him and you know Him, it gives other people license to ignore Him. Because if you can't believe He can save you, then why should I? If you don't think punishment is real, if you don't think consequence is real, if you don't believe that He's coming, and you're living like the world, now I've got nothing to fear but God. You might be the only Bible people ever read. I was reading, went to Nehemiah, and I went to, started at 1 Chronicles. and the lists of the names of the people from Ezra to Nehemiah, from Nehemiah to Chronicles, and I sat there looking at 2 chapters of just name after name after name after name, and some of them with Chronicles, it goes from Adam and it just runs. And I sat there and I think, how many people have gone before you just to give you a testimony of this? How many people have lived and died and breathed God just to give you a list? And all of them is just mentioned, in many cases, just by name. We know nothing about them. And then I stopped to think, how many people have names whose names are not in this book? And it always makes me think, when it's all said and done, am I going to have a chapter when God is going to pen down my life? Is it going to be testimony of the testimony of what God did through me? Joshua's life, we're talking about, it says here, he died at 110, we'll get to that now. 110 years, you're reading 24 chapters. Everything that you are, every fiber of your being, are you going to get a one-line little name? Are you going to be completely omitted because you didn't know him and you didn't want to know him and you didn't care about him? Are you going to become an Obadiah? Jonah? Jonah's entire life is virtually summarized in 4 chapters. And he gets a little mention in other scripts, but you look at it and you're like, okay, about what? What do I want at the end of it all? Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem. Why Shechem? Mentioned it before. Yeah, it takes us back to Abraham. God gave Abraham in Genesis 12 a promise. And they're sitting over there, he's remembering the promise. Remember the covenants that went before you. Remember you are only here because of the faithfulness of one man. And his son carried that promise, and his other son carried that promise. Even when he was facing Esau, death was looking at him in the eyes. Even when he was being cheated by his uncle. Even when you were walking around in Pharaoh and Joseph and famine and plague and all the rest of it. The only reason you're alive right now is because of that. The only reason you have land right now is because of that. It's only because of God's faithfulness that He's carried on His promise. And you need to stop and you need to consider that this is all because of someone else's faithfulness. Now let me ask you a question. Whose faithfulness are you clinging to? If Yeshua was not faithful in the garden, praying for people that have not even yet come to the fold, looking at them saying, I'm going to be pressed out so they can be saved. Because of His faithfulness you are here. Because of His faithfulness you have a shot. Grab my hand and come up to eternal glory, or go down and be destroyed with everything else that is to fail. At the end of it all, it's a simple choice. He summoned the leaders, the heads, and the judges, and the officials of Israel, and they presented themselves before God. Joshua said to the people, this is what Adonai, the God of Israel, says. In antiquity, your ancestors lived on the other side of the Euphrates River. Terach, the father of Abraham and Nahor, they served other gods. I took your ancestor Abraham from beyond the river, led him through the land of Canaan, increased his descendants, gave him Yitzhak. I gave Yitzhak, Yaakov, and Esau. To Esau I gave Mount Seir as his possession. Even the one who wasn't even following God's ways already received the possession. But Yaakov and his children went down into Egypt. I sent Moshe and Aaron. I inflicted plagues on Egypt in accordance with what I did among them, and afterwards I brought you out. Yes, I brought your fathers out of Egypt. You arrived at the sea, and the Egyptians were pursuing your ancestors, and the chariots and the horsemen in the sea of Suf. But when they cried out to Adonai, that should tell you something. In the beginning, remember, they cried out and they didn't even know what his name was. They didn't even know who he was. They had forgotten everything about him. In 400 years, they went from walking with God, talking to him face to face, negotiating about 10 people in Sodom and Gomorrah, to the point where we don't even know who this guy is and what covenant, who belongs to where. Don't think for a second if you turn your back on God for a week, a month, or even a year, that you will start to forget everything He is and what He stands for. He put darkness between you and the Egyptians, overwhelmed them with the sea and drowned them. Your eyes saw what I did in Egypt, and then you lived in the desert for a long time. I brought you into the land of the Amorite, living beyond the Yarden. They fought against you, but I handed them over to you. You took possession of their land. I destroyed them ahead of you. Then Balak, the son of Zippor, the king of Moab, rose up and fought against Israel. He sent and summoned Balaam, the son of Beor, to put a curse on you, but I refused to listen to Balaam, and he actually blessed you. In this way, I rescued you from him. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, in the midst of Israel, grumbling and moaning and faffing was taking place. Wandering in the wilderness where people were seeking their destruction, trying to put curses on you. Abba says, you don't talk to my kids like that. Next, you cross the Yarden and you came to Jericho. The men of Jericho fought against you, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Kenani, the Hittite, the Girgashi, the Yevi, the Yevusi. And I handed them over to you. I sent the hornet ahead of you, driving them out of ahead of you. 2 kings of the enemy. It wasn't by your sword or your bow. That's a funny little reference, this little hornet that happens in Exodus 23, verse 28 and Deuteronomy 7. A lot of the thinking is, even the wild animals, these plagues turned against them. How many of you tried to swat a horde of a swarm of hornets? Or go and try to tackle a swarm of bees? Doesn't matter how big and strong you are, you generally have to turn and run. Something about that is. So even the animals turned against them. Then I gave you a land where you had not worked, and cities you had not built, and you lived there. You eat fruit from vineyards and olive groves which you did not plant. You have cities you did not build. You eat from trees you did not plant. You walk into an orchard and it's there for you. Someone else's labor, someone else's work, someone else's time. Year after year, generation after generation, and he goes, that's it, you almost got it right, my children are coming. He prepared the city for you. He prepared the food for you. He prepared the people for you. You have to get ready for that job. What do you think he was doing on the other side of the Jordan? What do you think he's doing now? Take stock of where you are. You've got work to do. Therefore, fear Adonai and serve Him truly and sincerely. Now that's a tough one. Truly and sincerely. Sincerity is a heart condition. This entire portion is about where your heart is. Put away your gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve Adonai. If it seems bad to you to serve Adonai, then choose today whom you are going to serve. Will it be the gods of your ancestors served beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorite in whose land you are living? He says, look at their testimony. If they were that great, would they be able to stand against me? They couldn't hold Abraham back. Egypt couldn't be held back. These guys, the Amorites, could not hold me back. Their gods meant nothing. Now, if you want to, you can go serve the nothingness. Or you can stop and take a look at where you are and where we came from and how many years I've taken to get you here. And that's when he comes into that little verse. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. God is real, against things that are not. You can test him. You can check him. You can hold on to him. It says in the beginning to test him, but mature believer, be careful. Later when you know he's real, you don't get to test him again. In the beginning of the walk, he said, try me. Let me show you. But later on, when you go, is he even with us? After 40 years of wandering with him, when you still have manna falling on your head every morning? Now you're just looking for trouble. Because you're not only doubting him, you're doubting his love and why he's doing what he's doing to get you to where you need to be. Sometimes you need to eat a little bit of manna to understand what provision is. The people answered, far be it from us that we would abandon Adonai to serve other gods, because it is Adonai our God who brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt from a life of slavery. He did those great signs before our eyes and preserved us all along the way we traveled and among all the peoples we passed through. And let me equate that to you, little Gospels. Yeshua did miraculous signs and wonders. He preserved you. He gave you life. He died to bring you out of bondage, to get you to this point. He slipped you out of your muck. Now for you it might be a while that you don't remember what your muck was like. For you it's still fresh. If you're a second generation believer, maybe your muck's not that bad. But don't think for a second that you would get stuck in some of the world to the point where you might not make it out. You know, it's funny when you see it, when you see the first generation believer, the person who makes the big change, holds on to God the hardest, because they never want to go back to that person. The second generation becomes a little bit more laxy-daisy because they've never had to hold on so hard. And then the third generation, well, it's just this God thing that we've got to do once a week. What made Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob different was that Yitzhak made the commitment. You will not be the God of my father, you will be my God as well. And he blessed him. Yaakov negotiated with God. Then you will be my God. The three patriarchs set up a nation, and a nation led to a Messiah, and a Messiah who changed the world. Young ones, if you're sitting there looking at your parents thinking you are covered by their righteousness, you are not. You are getting benefits of their righteousness, but when you walk out of that umbrella one day and you have to make decisions for yourself, you will choose, and you will feel if you are sitting in righteousness or you're choosing your own destruction. I had a discussion with a young man who left his father's household, stays far away from him, and as soon as he got freedom, he got into his booze, he became depressed, and guess what? Not too long ago, he had to walk into rehab and said, I'm an alcoholic and I'm depressed. He loved sitting at home with his parents because he felt his parents' peace, because there where his parents was, God's were with them because they were serving him. But when he left, he could never understand why. Why do I feel like that there and not here? Because you don't have God, because you're not serving him. That's why. And he grew up in that house. And he says for the first time, he understands peace. But he's fighting an addiction he never intended to have. One bad choice. He preserved us all along the way we traveled and among all the peoples we passed through. And it was Adonai who drove out from ahead of us all the peoples, the Amorim living in the land. Therefore, we too will serve Adonai, for he is our God. It has to be ownership. Joshua said to the people, you can't serve Adonai because he is, you can't serve Adonai because he is a holy God, a jealous God, and he will not forgive your crimes and sins. If you abandon Adonai and serve foreign gods, he will turn doing you harm and destroying you after he has done you good. If you leave him, don't expect the blessings. He said it quite clearly when they came into the land, they shouted blessings and curses. Curses are walking away from God. You don't get the benefits of having Him. Blessings are there because you're with Him. But the people said to Joshua, no, but we will serve Adonai. Joshua said to the people, you are witnesses against yourselves that you have chosen Adonai to serve Him. They answered, we are witnesses. Let me remind you, Ela Bet Shalom, that there is been my privilege and my honor, and many of you have seen to witness. I have baptized most of you or rededicated you. You're witnesses against yourself if you walk away. It's not just about climbing towards you and saying, yea, please wipe me clean, and then I will do whatever I want. We fight hard for you because we want to keep you safe. We love you to the point where we will fight for you. We show up because we love you. This is not a place you attend. This is a family you belong to. Don't make the mistake that we're playing church or playing shul here. This is family. This is discipleship. You own your walk. And we will be by your side as far as we are willing, as far as He wills us to go. But ultimately the decision is yours. Now Joshua urged, put away your foreign gods you have among you and turn your hearts to Adonai, the God of Israel. I'm still sitting here thinking, oh, what the heck do with the foreign gods things? Carried idols away from temples and thought it's just gold, I'm going to melt it down, it's all fine. Until your kids get older. The people answered Joshua, we will serve Adonai our God and pay attention to what He says. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, laying down for them laws and rulings there in Shechem. Joshua wrote these words in the book of the Torah of God. Then he took a big stone and set it up there under an oak tree next to the sanctuary of Adonai. Standing stone is a witness. Joshua said to the people, see, the stone will be a witness against us because it has heard all the words of Adonai, which He said to us. Therefore, it will be a witness against you in case you deny your God. Then Joshua sent the people away, every man to his inheritance. After this, Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of Adonai, died. He was 110 years old. They buried him on the property in Timnath Serach, which is in the hills of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. Israel served through Adonai throughout Joshua's lifetime and throughout the lifetimes of the leaders who outlived Joshua and had known all the deeds of Adonai had done on behalf of Israel. The bones of Yosef, which the people of Israel had brought up from Egypt, they buried in Shechem, in the parcel of ground which Yaakov had bought from the sons of Hamor and the sons of Shechem for 100 pieces of silver. And they became the possession of the descendants of Joseph. And as if almost to an addendum, finally Eleazar, the son of Aaron, died, and they buried him on the hills belonging to Pinchas, his son, which he had been given to him in the hills of Ephraim. What was the one thing we didn't hear coming out of Joshua's mouth? Yeah. Who is the next to lead? Who anointed Joshua in his calling? Moses. And he said he knows these people, they are going to need someone to keep them on track, and we're going to go into a portion called Judges, where the central theme of Judges is every man did as he saw fit. Welcome to the church age. I just don't feel that's for me. It's written. I just don't feel convicted enough. It's written. That's for you, that's not for me. But God said. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but Guys? Those of you who have walked a lot longer than what we have, who are going to get to the point of looking back at your life and realize that the seasons that are behind you are way more than the seasons ahead of you, please pray for the next generation. Pray for them to stand up and take their place. Nurture, instruct, develop, catch them, lift them, guide them, beat them with love. Because they haven't had the hurt you had. They don't understand the things you had to get through to get to where you were. When you look at the list of witnesses where he starts off, in chapter 24, where does he start? Put away the Bibles, it's almost finished there. Chapter 24, what? I don't understand. Who does he start with? He starts with Abraham. And he looks at Abraham and he goes, from that point on, he lived and he died for God to give you an inheritance. Yitzhak, he lived and he died for God to give an inheritance. Jacob, he lived and died for God to give you an inheritance. It becomes a cloud of witnesses against you. We lived so that you can live. We live for God so that you can. Next generation, don't sit there thinking that it's just your choice. People have fought, and they fought hard for their salvation. They've clung unto God. You know what I'm saying? Salvation is a gift Yeshua gave you, but you have to fight and you walk it out with fear and trembling. With this gift, what am I doing? I fight to make the right choice. I'm warring against self many times. Many times, I'm the one that's going to get in the way of God's plan for my life. Don't get stuck in this thing where you think you can walk around willy-nilly and God's just going to pick you up on whatever highway you're walking on. He said, David says, lead me in your paths of righteousness. The word is cycles in righteousness. So you walk around it, and the well-worn path, are the people that have gone before you. Abraham went before us, and he's looking at you now with everyone else who has gone before us. Think about the persecution of Paul. Think about what other disciples had to go through. Think about Yeshua himself. Think about all the Old Testament guys, Daniel and them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, all of these guys pointing to a point. Jeremiah and crying out for people just to open up their eyes to listen. Isaiah, how many priests, how many prophets, how many people have gone before you just to get you to understand that God is the be-all and end-all? People that have chased it. In the book of Ecclesiastes. Chase pleasure, chase power, chase fame, money, the rest of it, went through the whole thing and came to the realization. What was the final realization? Everything is for nothing. Therefore serve God. Serve Adonai. And obey his mitzvot. And that's the end of it, and this is for all humanity. That's for all creation. We believe Solomon wrote that book in his later years. Think about it if he did. The wisest man on earth who had more women, had more power, had more money, had more fame than anybody else in all the history of Israel. And he goes, you know what, I've tried it all and it's all just stupid. I should have just stuck with my God and his instructions, and the rest didn't matter. I leave you with that same thought. There are places in Israel where we go and we sit in those ancient synagogues, and one of the first things I say, because there's only a handful that we know of, is these walls have heard the very words of God. They'll witness against you. They stand up against you if you choose to walk away and acknowledge that he doesn't exist, because he died thinking you were with him. Choose this day whom you will serve. There is destruction, and separation, and punishment, and promise of reform many, many, many years later. The Judges is going to lead us up to King Saul, and King Saul's going to lead us to David, and we're going to get some unity, and then it's just going to be downhill from there. As we have testimony after testimony of what happens when you walk away from Him. Do you have to lose your life to figure out that what you're doing is a bad idea? And for those of you who have peace, who have the joy of God, who are sitting there walking with Him and celebrating with Him, how much more evidence do I need to say that this is now a bad idea? Comes down to one choice. Do you love Him? Great time is every time.
Thank you, Abba Father, that we brought each one of us here safely today. We could spend time as family in your word. We just thank you for the rain that you bring in. Lord, we just give you glory and praise for that, Father. Lord, I ask that you just go before each person this week. Lord, that your word that you planted will just grow and bring much fruit in our lives. And Father, that you will draw us closer to you. That you'll change us, Father, from inward to outward, where we may walk the walk that you've called us. Lord, we just bring unto them before you. Suffering with a headache, Father, we ask that you intervene. If it's not from you, Lord, we ask that you, whatever's causing the problem, Lord, that you nullify it, that you bring just soothing and total healing. Lord, we just give you glory and praise. May you go before each one here this next week. May you give each one strength, Father, to do the right thing, to walk in your ways, Father, and to acknowledge you first. And we sure pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, just before we close, just remember, anybody who wants to be part of the group that is going to pray, just come and chat to Auntie Elsie here in the corner, and they can just set up the time and that, and then if we can put it on the WhatsApp group for those to know. All right.